Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing blue in the 5-minute pool on ICC. Haven't played for a few days because I've been out of town, so this is my first game, since late last week, like Thursday or something. We have a QGD exchange variation. Takes with the knight, so we have a Semi-Tarrasch in our hands now. C5. Yeah, knight f3 is usually played.
Check.
And
Check.
this can simplify pretty quickly. I mean, white is supposed to maintain some edge in this line, so I'm looking forward to playing this. Bishop b7, rook fe1, etc. There's a game, I think it's Polygaevsky versus Tal. That's kind of like the seminal game in this variation. And so far, I think we're following it closely, unless I think Tal might have put the knight on c6 instead. Okay, so let's maybe let's wait to commit this rook for a little bit. Maybe I'll play h4. Just a good move to stake out space while we decide on a further course of action. Because usually the rook goes to d1, but I kind of think there might be some cases where you don't want to put it there. So let's just drop the bishop back to d3. It'll be useful on the square. So a very common plan for white in this line is to play d5, pawn takes, and then e5. Not sure how practical that is in this case, but we want to have it on our radar. So developing the knight to f6. E4 is defended. It's not a threat. Maybe I can do a positional plan like a4, a5. That comes to mind. Might be okay. Let's try that. I mean, typically you don't play this way in this line. You do try to go for that d5, e5 plan I mentioned, but if I played d5 and he took and I played e5, like knight e4 is a good reply. So it's not the most promising pawn sack in the world. It's better if this diagonal, the b1, h7 diagonal, could remain open. So I'm opting for just a more positional treatment of this line. And here's where like keeping my rook on a1 makes sense now. It fits in nicely with this idea. It's a minority attack. a4, a5, trying to inflict a pawn weakness on their queen side. My only concern is h4 might be slightly out of place, but I don't think I'll regret this move too much. It does create love for my king, so my king can escape now and there's no back rank threats. Maybe if this knight moves, I can play h5. Okay, so queen c7. If I play a5, he's probably going queen c3. Do I care? No, I don't think so. Yeah, let's do it. Knight g4 doesn't really impress, I don't think, so this should be all right. Okay, let's take. He's probably taking here. We'll pre-move that. So now I think we're going to get the scenario I was referring to where he has a weakness. Now, do I want to play rook a b1 and go after that b6 pawn right away? I have other moves like rook a7 that seem interesting. Maybe that's a pretty serious move. Rook b1 is very obvious. And I think he can deal with it, like maybe trade queens and then play rook c3, something along those lines. So I kind of like rook a7. I'm going to play that. Just so long as it works out tactically. Yeah, let's give it a shot. Let's see if he trades queens. My hope is that he'll, like, say after a trade, play rook c7, and then he's forced himself into a pin along the 7th rank. I might be able to exploit that. More likely, though, he'll play like bishop c6 or maybe rook b8. Yeah, he counterattacks with this move. I probably want to retain the bishops. Yeah, let's go bishop back to f1. I'm guessing bishop c6 is coming. Maybe f3 is good, just to make sure that this pawn is always protected. Also, bishop c6, I can play rook c7. Trying to utilize a different form of this pin of the bishop on the rook. Rook c2 he plays. So if I take b7, he takes d2. I take here, he takes d4. That's hanging at the end. Yeah. Underestimated that move. If rook e2, can he take on e4? It's a big question. Rook e2, knight takes e4. Then if knight takes, rook takes, then he'll regain the piece. Kind of looks that way. Rook d1 doesn't make sense. He can just take on e4 as well. Just not quite sure how to play it right now. Rook e2, knight takes e4. But then I have rook takes e4. Okay, I can play that way. Let's do that. So knight takes e4, rook takes e4. If bishop takes, knight takes, I have two minors for the rook and pawn. I'm okay with that line. And if knight takes e4, rook takes e4, rook takes d2, then I have rook takes b7, and I've won a piece from that transaction. Should have seen this move a little faster, but I still think it's okay. This is undoubtedly awkward, though. This rook defending the knight on d2, blocking my own bishop. Remains to be seen how much that will impact the game. Okay, let's pin him. Can maybe play knight e8, but I have rook c8 then. Knight d6. Knight e8 might not be such a bad idea now. Yeah. I think he's bringing the knight to d6. Okay, let's just... Ooh. If we go back to see a bishop b5. Maybe, but we'll take that risk. Because I have rook e1, and the bishop is hanging on this square, so... Could be all right. Basically, I just want to play f3 and securely defend that piece. Maybe rook here's better. Either way, I think I'm in some trouble now, though. All right, we'll do this. He can take on d2 is the issue. Yeah, and then this pawn is hanging. That's right. Now I have to try to bail out with a draw somehow. Maybe e5. e5 he can take here. All right, let's do this and then rook b7. I'll try my best. It's a bit of a problem now, though. Yeah, this is not good. Okay. Let's go here. This is e5. Position is drawish, but I'm now the one who has to fight pretty hard for a draw. Yeah, he takes here, I take e5. Not sure I'm going to make it with the time situation. He has h6. Let's try this. Rook e1, king f2, he can take here and then take h4, though. Or just take h4 directly, yeah. Okay, we'll bring this up. See if this works out. Not optimistic. He can bring his rook to h5 whenever he wants now. Should be a win for black.
Check.
Just needs to figure out a way to organize it. He can check on g3 now. Yeah, this is definitely a win for black.
Check. Check. Time work.
Let's go here. King g5 is good enough. Okay, I'm going to resign. That was a well-played endgame by him. Yeah, I didn't really come up with anything after rook c2. Rook c2 was a good move to kind of keep counterplay going. Let's have a look at it. This is one of these lines that white might be slightly better, but I think if black really knows what to do, they can sort of diffuse that initial edge that white has.
Check.
And he just played fast and he played solid, good moves. This is all normal up through here. Yeah, knight d7 is probably a better idea than knight c6. It seems to be the way that people play this line. Not sure I would play h4 in retrospect. Maybe a4 right away is the better move, because h4 turned out to be just kind of a semi-wasted move. I mean, it has some nice points, but in the context of starting a kingside initiative, given his knight coming to f6, it probably didn't make much sense. I think the other problem I had later on in this game was that by the time I realized I was worse, I was already down on the clock, and it was almost too late to properly make a draw. I mean, sometimes when you're pressing, you feel like you're pressing, and you have been for a while. You're always like thinking, oh, I can bail out and make a draw whenever I want. You know, there's no danger here. But when the clock starts ticking, you realize, hey, I actually don't have as much margin for error as I thought, especially on the clock. Then you start to panic a little bit. Still, though, a5, I accomplished my goal of giving him an isolated pawn. Rook a7, I thought this was a good idea. Take here. Okay, so now, according to the computer, I should just settle for rook takes b7, rook takes d3, knight f3, defending this d-pawn, and ask him how he intends to defend this pawn. Guessing rook b3, and then knight e5. Yeah, and maybe it's the case that my knight is better than his knight. He can still try knight e8 to d6, perhaps, but maybe knight c4 then? Knight d7 nearly traps the rook. He has this to counterattack. But I can, yeah, there must be a lot of lines where I can try to win a pawn. Go for some variation like this, and the onus is still on him to make the half point. But, yeah, perhaps I was looking for something when there wasn't anything after bishop f1, rook c2. And maybe I should just settle for capturing this bishop either on this move, right after rook c3, or right here after rook c2. I think that is the case, actually. Rook e2 was cumbersome. Blocks my bishop. I'm kind of pinned here. There's always knight takes e4 I have to contemplate. If he takes on e4 right away, it doesn't work, so I can take with the rook, as I was saying. And I would prefer to have the two minors against the rook and pawn in this case, because my minor pieces are pretty active. I have a good rook on the 7th, I mean, and a good knight that can create threats. And likewise, bishop takes doesn't work at all, because if knight takes, rook takes e2, knight takes f6, intermezzo, and then take the rook and row up a piece. But he just played bishop c6, sensible move. Yeah, rook c7 was a waste of time in view of knight e8. Should have just played f3. I need this pawn securely defended in so many lines, so I should just do that immediately. Makes sense. So rook c7 and knight e8. Okay, here he can take on e4. That also escaped my attention. Now the rook's hanging on c7. Okay, so now like I don't have time for stuff like rook takes e4, knight takes e4. He just does this, and he's going to be up in exchange plus a pawn in this position, so that's bad. So this was just a bad idea overall. I mean, the concept of it is nice to try to pin him, but he can kick me away with knight e8, and also there's that bishop takes e4 refutation. So here I had to go right back to a7. Bishop b5. Why is rook e1 better than rook e3? Rook takes d2, bishop takes, let's say this, e5, restricting the knight. This is still hanging, but his knight is poorly placed too. Let's say he takes it, rook e7, and the knight has nowhere to go. That's better than rook a8, because rook a8 would allow the knight to escape via c7. That's a detail in the game I didn't notice either. Because I think, as played, I was debating between rook e1 and rook e3. I chose this. And then I took on e8. I saw this move, but I didn't think I had anything after this. And I thought he might have time to play like g6, knight g7. But I didn't notice that rook e7 just straight out traps the knight. That would have been good to notice. Because e5 makes a good deal of sense. The knight squares are all taken away. So he'd have to play something like that to try to get it back in the game. Looks like he's still better. He is still up a pawn now, if he doesn't lose that knight. Undoubtedly, he's the one playing for the advantage. So take, rook takes, rook b7. Yeah, now I'm down a pawn, but I feel like my activity should probably make up for it. This rook f3 move wasn't that great. I think I should just play f3 and abandon the idea of attacking the f7 pawn with my rook. Should have just done this and operated with my rook on the 7th rank. Maybe I can go rook d3 or rook c3 and bring it up here. Yeah, and rook f4 was not a good choice either. e5. Now I have to choose, do I want to defend my e-pawn or put my rook somewhere bad? Yeah, and g6 was a nice way to take advantage. I was hoping he would just take on h4 and then I could take on e5. Even here, I'd be struggling to draw down a pawn with this time situation. But He played g6, much smarter. I went here, h6, f3. Yeah, even if I play rook g3 after h6, he gets a 2-pawn advantage, and I'm very likely losing. Yeah, and as played, he was able to hold on to the 2 pawns, brought his rook over to h8. Good endgame technique by him, unless I had something that I otherwise missed. Rook b7, maybe it can slow him down a little bit. I somehow still think he should win this. The only thing that makes it hard to win is that my king is fairly active, and he has to monitor the h-pawn at all times. Rook b7 is a good move because it pins the f7 pawn. Might stop him from connecting his pawns altogether, like defending e5 again.
Check.
As played, he was able
Check.
to sneak his king up to h5. That was a good plan. Yeah, and now he's defending this weak point. He's attacking e4. If I go here, this is equivalent to resignation. My rook is completely tied down. He can just do this and this again, and then maybe play f5. So that's not going to work for me
Check.
either. But it's losing in any case at this point. So I just resigned. Okay, so I think in this line, the Semi-Tarrasch,
Check.
where the
Check.
knight is developed through d7, I think I have to remember that h4 isn't that good, and that maybe I should just focus on the queenside plan right away. Like, minimize any potential kingside weaknesses, just focus on a plan of pushing the a-pawn, try to inflict a weakness. There might be ways to play on the kingside, but I feel like black's position is a little too solid to assault it directly, so just settling for this mini minority attack should be nice for white. But reliable line for black nonetheless. It's a little passive, but it's pretty reliable, as you can see from this game. All right, I'll try to get back on track tomorrow. Hope you guys are having a good week so far and enjoyed this video. I'll be back tomorrow with another Blitz game. Talk to you guys later. Bye.